Well, hello, everybody.
Hi, welcome. Yeah, go ahead.
We think we're live, so we're hoping that we have some individuals out there. Jen and I are looking in the comment section, and I'm going to let Jen take over and say hello.
Hi, everybody. I'm Coach Jen. Diana and she kindly invited me to join her today as sort of um, just a last minute sort of way to connect with all of you, to maybe talk about our upcoming walking and core strength classes, because they start this week, but we've had such an overwhelming response and we filled up so many of the classes. We thought we'd chat with you more as we've opened up a few more spaces. So we'll fill you in a little bit more about that. But for now, if you can just drop us a line to let us know you're here. I do see that we have people connecting with us. So just let us know where you're from. And to remind everyone, oh, hi, Debbie from Virginia, just to remind everyone that this is Leslie's public page. So if you do have a question or a comment, just be mindful of that for your own safety and well-being. And also, we don't have our usual rock stars support from behind the scenes. So for those of you that are familiar with us getting on here and chatting with you, we don't have to monitor all the comments. To do the best we can to keep up with all of you. Please, any questions that you have, and we'll do our best to stay on top of them and answer. So anyway, maybe to set more of the stage of what we're talking about today, Diana, I'll turn it back over to you.
Well, we're talking about what is core strength and why we need it, and what are the benefits of a strong core strength, right? And I think my husband and I found that out when we tried to clear out our house to prepare for flooring to be installed, and we haven't worked out since 2020. And so he actually ended up on his back. I had to come back from being out of town to help him, and I left with a messed up back. And you know why? Because we haven't been working on our core strength. And I said to my husband, of course, as wives do, I said, you need to strengthen your core. And he said, well, I walk every day. Well, there's a certain way to strengthen your core, right? And so we're talking about those muscles really from our lower chest plate all the way to our hips. And so today we're not going to be talking about those muscles, but some of those same principles really apply. Because for core strength, we want to gain stability, right? And we want to have flexibility, resiliency in life. We want to have a balanced life. And just as all of strengthening our physical core applies to all of those things, it really applies to our inner life and how we respond externally. So when our internal core is strong, we can weather some of the storms. We can carry a little bit of a heavier weight and still remain true to who we want to be and who we are authentically designed to be. Mm-hmm. And so we'll feel like we have increased stability, right? And I think also, Jen, I don't know if you would agree, but with a strong core, we're a little bit more resilient to pain that comes into our life. Wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. Because we can't control that external environment like what you're talking about.
Yeah.
What we control is ourselves. And the stronger we are, like you said, those muscles, so we're talking about emotional muscles here, the better off we are equipped, the resiliency and the power, if you will, to get through those external factors that come at us that we don't have control over. So kind of similarly, to your story about you and your husband, and he literally ended up on his back, and that's a real life example. I similarly, I can relate from a physical standpoint, where I used to be a private nurse for a quadriplegic. And it was, like just sitting in a moving vehicle, you don't recognize already the strength that you do have that actually supports you. So when a car comes to a stop, you don't necessarily feel this movement, right? Unless you come to an abrupt stop. Just as you slow down, your body naturally has enough strength to just keep yourself supported with that proper posture. When you're a quadriplegic, you no longer have that same type of control.
Wow.
And so on my client, he wouldn't mind me sharing this because it was so long ago, I literally would have to put his chest strap on him, attached to his wheelchair while we drove, because any little movement he would fall over, right? And potentially hurt himself. So it's similar here. We do already come into this with some sense of strength. The Lord has blessed us with that. What Diana and I and our whole team here, and with Leslie's amazing curriculum, are just offering a way to strengthen it even more, to give us that sense of resiliency so that we're not, like as you mentioned, we've got that balanced life, that we can take those external factors that come at us that we cannot control and just rise above them. So that's what I'm excited about in talking about this today, because I mean, that kind of sums it up why we need it. We need it to be able to bounce back and have a healthy, balanced emotional lives.
Well, that's true. And I know that it's not something that we talk about. It's not something we think about. And unless you've kind of really done some of your own internal work, I don't think it's something that we have well defined, right? And so your internal core, I would say, to a large extent, is also a part of really developing your self-identity. Wouldn't you say?
Yes, amen to that. Oh, no, because we don't know how to fend off, if you will, those external factors if we don't know who we are and how we need to show up. So we need
Exactly.
to know, we need to be self-aware. We need to understand who we are on this earth and in God, in order to be able to show up with intention.
So we're really excited about what we're doing here, right? At Leslie Bernick and Company, and also that we actually do a Walking a Core Strength group that's every other week for 6 weeks. And we're talking about building your internal core. And it's different than, it's not an exercise and fitness program, but it is for you internally. And one of the things I think, Jen, that I think is really appropriate, it's not just about identifying my self-identity, but also as God sees me and as he's uniquely intended me to be. And so a part of that is like rediscovering sometimes, or discovering for the first time, if you've not had a place in life where you've had time to really sit and think about what matters to you, right? Where you are on certain subjects. Hebrews tells us that it's God's will for us to mature and live a holy life. It's Hebrews 5:14. And so what we focus on in core is what is the solid stuff that we need to be anchored to so that we can live out life with that strength and that stability of heart, mind, and soul, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's very
Yeah.
holistic in approach, but with God at the center of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I'm already seeing here too, like from some of the comments, we've got, like difficult situations like a divorce that someone is going through right now. And unfortunately, that happens. How we show up and how we respond is within our control. And as we strengthen that core, we have a better chance at showing up in the way that God wants us to be.
So what would you say in terms of showing up strong? What goes into that?
Oh, well, like we already said, self-awareness is key. I think, and I truly believe everyone watching here, everyone that's been through something similar, maybe comment too if you've ever been through this program before and you can share your own story of growth. But I really think that we do already come by some of this honestly and naturally, but we don't know if we're not aware. So sometimes it's just kind of by luck that something might have worked out for us because it is just a natural gift and we don't even realize, or we don't give credit to God for that gift he's given us because we just think it was a fluke the way it turned out in our favor. Whereas having that self-awareness, and as you said, that identity, especially in Christ, we can set out and be more intentional. So therefore we can have healthy control, better chance at designing what our future and what our outcomes are going to be, or at least how we're going to show up. Without that self-awareness, it's a bit of a guessing game, right? At least this way it's more intentional and more by design, if
I
you
love
will.
what you said. Yeah. So self-awareness leads to clarity, right, of who I am. For me, that's really helpful because I think a lot of times we can step into things and say yes just to go along with everyone or to please other people. So, and I noticed that, with people that I work with who have that strong sense of, oh, no, that's not for me. That's not going to work for me. So self-awareness, right? Developing that core identity of how you're uniquely different. You and I really have different backgrounds, right?
Mhm.
Um, and and that brings different skills, right? Different opportunities to the table for both of us.
Mhm.
Um, and so then what?
Well,
So
I think with
intention,
all of
that's
our
what you said.
yeah,
Intention.
no, I love that. No, and it helps explain it so clearly. I think courage needs to come into this. And again, some of us may not realize how powerful we already are. So
Mhm.
we want to be able to tap into that courage and grow that, because a lot of this in the C part of our core that we talk about in the group coaching program is being committed to that truth, both internally and externally. And that sometimes takes a lot of guts, because we do know what our truth is, but we might deny a little bit of it because it's not pleasant, or maybe we fully aren't totally aware of what it is. So it takes a lot of courage, I think, sometimes to be able to tap into our core strength. And we're well supported with the group environment as we walk through this, with the Lord, of course, and with us as a coaching team to help support everyone that chooses to go through this.
You know, what I really like about what you said about truth is, and you said that sometimes we really do know our internal truth, but I think sometimes we don't too. And we have to really think about that, because I think often, I don't know about you, but I'm so busy with life,
Mhm.
just doing life, that if I really have to sit down and think about, what is it that I want most? What is it that I'm drawn toward most, right? In anything, like relationally, occupationally, any of those things. And then here's a rough one. What are the truths in my life that I want to live out? Because a lot of times we ignore those, don't
Mm.
you think?
Yes.
Because sometimes they're painful truths, but those truths help us to make good decisions in our life,
Yeah.
because they tell us what the reality is, right?
That's right. And that's why I think it takes courage, because it's one we know about that we've been trying to put off on purpose because we already know it's painful, or we're opening ourselves up to a truth that we don't even know yet. And we don't know
Yeah.
what that truth is going to be. But to your point, once we get through that and we create that awareness about what that truth is, it frees us for so much creativity and openness to, again, creating a life by design with the Lord's help. It
Mhm.
really sets us up for success in all of those external relationships that I know are very important to us.
Absolutely. I think having that clarity and walking in awareness, and then accepting the truth of what's feasible and what's not feasible for me in my life, um, can lead me to greater satisfaction. There's a lot. I have a lot of ideas, and I've always wanted to try this or try that. I'm always coming up with these creative business ideas. And I was talking with a friend on the phone. She's a lifelong friend, and we were giggling. She goes, I said, I always have these ideas, don't I? And she's giggling back. And we're both. And I said, you know what? We're kind of old for that now. We're not going to choose that. You know what I mean? And so walking in the truth, like, what's feasible for me right now, given my situation, given my circumstances, given who I am, how I'm uniquely designed, right?
Mhm.
And walking out that truth with strength and dignity. And often we're called to speak about that in ways to others who may not understand. And a part of, I think, developing our core strength is also, as I become aware of my internal truths, now how am I going to live that out externally, right? When I'm challenged by that.
Mhm.
Or, yeah, or, when we think about, when someone's breaking my boundaries or behaving poorly, um, how is my internal core strength going to result in what my behavior looks like? That's a big one, right?
Yeah. And then by extension, how that behavior then feeds into your sense of peace. Because everyone's
Yeah.
version of peace or their circumstances in which they're living that will bring them peace may be different. But I think we all have that goal of walking ourselves out to a point where the outcome is peace, whatever the
Absolutely.
situation may be. But I really appreciate what you were saying there too, because again, like you were saying about the truth part, and we've heard Leslie say this before, it may be reasonable. I think it's beyond reasonable that you have all these goals. I think that's wonderful. But is it realistic?
No.
right?
No, I got to choose. I have to. I can
Yes.
choose what's reasonable, what's feasible, what fits
Yeah.
best for me, right?
That's right. And I think that's part of our truth. And with the support of others and creating that awareness, both from feedback externally or just churning our internal
Hmm.
thought processes, we can determine what we may have been so tied to thinking what's reasonable is automatically realistic. And we
Yeah.
get caught up in that swirl of what we believe our truth is and then constantly disappointed or frustrated because they're not actually matching up, when we can learn to maybe look at those two things separately to understand, well, of course that's reasonable, and yes, in a healthy relationship that would be reasonable and realistic, but given X, Y, and Z, with a particular
Mm.
relationship partner that may be destructive or toxic, it's not realistic. It's reasonable to have those expectations, but for it to really come to fruition might not be. And again, that's another truth,
Yeah.
that once you discover that, you are better equipped to take action that's going to further lead to your peace. And I
So
just think that's all critical.
it's very critical. And you brought up an important point. If you're living in a relationship where you're challenged, that's putting it mildly. It
Mm.
might be destructive. Um, it might be disappointing, destructive, or even abusive. Your core strength is at risk because it is something that is consistently being eroded
Mhm.
and being taxed. And oftentimes, I think this is particularly significant because we lose the aspect of who am I in this. And in our walking core strength group, we really kind of focus on that. Who are you? What are the truths in your life? What is God calling you to? Right? And
Yeah.
how do you live that out in the context of relationships that may be challenging?
Yeah, that's right. And we do it in such a way that it's supported by a very, very small group, powerful group, but we purposely keep it limited to only 15 women in the class or in the group setting, so that you get the attention and the closeness that comes, all the while with really great support and feedback and encouragement and love and lessons learned from other women that maybe are in a slightly different position in life at that time. And so we all come together for sort of one overall goal, but each of our own goals might be a little bit different, where we can just love and support on each other as we discover what these truths are, or the ones that we're finally ready to face. So I absolutely love that. So yeah, we just put up the sign up page because it's not too late. Classes are starting as soon as tonight, but those classes are all full.
Mhm.
So Diana and I still have spots left open on Thursday morning and Friday morning. And so we invite you, if this is something that maybe you've heard about so far and you've been kind of wondering, well, now's your chance. Maybe this is God speaking to you to say, okay, here it is. And if this is maybe the first time you're hearing about it, we hope that we can really touch on sort of the high level topics of what CORE, our core, really stands for, that you'll uncover and grow in over 3 months' time together. So we've got the truth part, being courageously committed to the truth. That's the C. What comes after that?
Well, yeah, being committed to the truth both inside and out. So it's not enough to just know what these acronyms what they mean, but as a part of what we do in the group is flesh those out. And we
Mm.
do it in a way that helps you to apply it to your life so that you can walk in these things. I do a lot of trainings. I do a lot of intensive trainings, and I walk away, and it's a lot to digest all at once. And in fact, I just took a 3-day training, and I get all the curriculum back, and I've got to review it on my own so I can absorb it, because it's a lot all at once. But that's not what we do. What we do is sit with you in your group of 15 women and literally coach you in your life around this material so that you can apply it in a way that is transformational and changing. And we have some testimony. Too bad we didn't have anybody come on board and give a testimony of how it's been changing their lives. But the groups are transformational.
Mhm.
If you're not a group kind of person, I would encourage you to try it. It's a small, intimate group, and it's really a blessing to get to know all these ladies who are most likely walking similar paths, and we all learn from one another as well.
Mhm.
Did I did I answer your question or did I go in a different direction? I can't
No,
remember.
that's good. No, I
Okay.
think it's important to demonstrate too, or at least to sort of explain a little bit more about how it works, because
Okay.
this isn't, I misspoke earlier and said class. That's just because Diana and I know what we mean when we say that, as opposed to our one-on-one type clients. But it's not a class where it's just one of us up there talking at you and you're taking notes. I mean, you might take notes, but this is very engaging on purpose.
Yeah.
Within our small groups, we break into even smaller groups because Zoom now allows us to do that. So we might come up with a topic question that's really powerful, and we will break you off into groups of 2 or 3 and have an even more intimate level of conversation as you do a deeper dive into the homework or into a topic that's just, you know, God-given and has just surfaced in our live time together. So it's really, there is a curriculum that we follow to help lead you through, but then it's very experiential and engaging and interactive as we meet for those 90 minutes every 2 weeks. So it's a way, as Diana said, to transform your life, but also in a practical, applicable way. We want you to be able to take these tools and practice how to apply them while we're together in these 3 months, so that it can equip you for the rest of your life. That's what we're really hoping to do here, is not just fix a problem that you might be having right now, but rather empower you with a new mindset, with the support of 14 other women and the tools to be able to be successful in whatever life throws at you forever.
Well, I don't know about you, but I've been working in this capacity with Leslie for quite a while. And I didn't mean that part, but I notice that each time I do this, I'm getting a deeper sense as well, because we go through the curriculum along with our ladies as well. And so I'm still doing my work and will always do my work until the day God calls me home. And I see myself very differently. And I make choices very differently based on anchoring in those truths that we have learned. And we're always mindful of that. Who do we want to be in those moments? And as you suggested, there are 4 core concepts that we coach around. And it sounds simple, being committed to the truth. What's my inner truth and what's my outer truth? But it's interesting to live that out, because it's interesting, right? And it's challenging. And that's where I think it's helpful to have a community come alongside you that can promote health, hope, and healing, right? And so then the O step is being open to receiving input, which is the sign of any healthy individual. And the other thing, we focus on is balance. We talk about, right, because that's a part of physical core, is having that balance. So what does that look like to being open to others? How do I take in that information in a way that's helpful for me, but still process it and make decisions with that? And who are those people in my life, right? Because we're not just going to be open to everyone. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. It's learning some of that discernment that applies to, who do I share my story with? Who do I ask for feedback? We talk about blind spots. We do a deeper dive into what our blind spots are, because they're blind spots. That means we don't know what they are. So again, it takes that courage and that commitment to being open to that, to what others have to feed into our lives, those people that we trust and are safe people, as well as what the Holy Spirit is convicting us of as well. Being open to that is huge.
I like the thought of identifying my blind spots in the context of a group of other women who may see things I don't see, because I can benefit from, you can benefit from what other people are noticing that you might want to gain some awareness in as well. Right. Okay, what are we are at 124. We have time, ladies. You can ask questions. There are not a lot of individuals out there, because we didn't have time to promote this and let you all know we were going to be on board. So if those of you that are online have questions, please put them in the chat, and Jen and I will do our best to kind of address those questions. Again, our class is starting Thursday and Friday, and it's going to be for 6 weeks, every other week. It's a 90-minute. You will have videos to watch and some homework to move forward in. So something to keep front and center every day that you're moving with, thinking about, and kind of meditating on, right?
Yeah. And we also have a private Facebook group just for all the participants in Walking in Core Strength. So you might have your own individual class with your coach, but we gather together as a larger community just for those women that are signed up for Walking in Core Strength this semester. And it's a powerful time together, because you can ask for support, you can ask for prayer, you can ask questions about the homework, and get the collective wisdom of how many classes have we got going on? 15, I think. 15 times 15. All of those women plus the coaches to be able to feed into you and support you in an asynchronous way between the live Zoom sessions that we have together. So all of that is, to me, it's invaluable. You guys that are familiar with me have heard me talk about, or Diana and I have shared before, the power of the group. This is it. I mean, there is definitely a time for one-on-one support, and obviously we provide that as well. But my experience after all my years of coaching, and then especially now being on Leslie's team, is watching these women support each other and develop and grow. And then to hear about the friendships and the lifelong connections that are made as a result of some of these relationships that get built over the next 3 months is just life-changing. That in of itself is just huge to me. Watch that happen. Pretty powerful. So I do see one particular question here. Can I go ahead and read it?
Absolutely.
Okay, so it looks like Rhonda. She says, I feel a little stuck right now. Could you define how we should define truth versus opinion, feeling, observation? What could be the truth to me may not be truth to someone else. Facts can be true, but interpretation can be different. Thank you. Oh, I'm smiling because I love this question. I think we have a solution.
Okay, you go first.
Well, I'm automatically, first thought, best thought goes to our thought journal. So there's a little bit of a teaser for all of those that don't know who that is. It's an extremely valuable tool that Leslie has shared with us for years, that Diana, I think you have actually helped design the template that we use. And it does exactly what you're asking for, Rhonda. It takes what our perception of the truth is through a particular situation and challenges us to really think of it through God's eyes. What is the capital T truth is what I call it when it's God speaking.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, so it's capital T truth, his truth through scripture, through wise others that we know are gifts from God, maybe perspective outside of ourselves, because we might get narrow focused on, the pain that we're in or something. Anyway, that's a bit of a teaser, but this class does a much deeper dive, and we learn how to practice using that thought journal process. But that's what comes up for me right away in answer to that question. But what are your thoughts on that, Diana? How do we look through the difference between our truth maybe versus someone else's versus?
Well, I think what you said is we do coach a lot around the thought journal. It is a very powerful tool, and it's a classic tool that's been used for a long time in this industry. But we teach you how to use that in a way so that you can figure those things out. So you can come to as much of an objective truth about your thoughts, your situation, and your circumstances. And I think the outcome of figuring that out is well-being. Because if you can get to an objective, what do I use the term? I'm not thinking of the term that I use. Helpful thought about the situation and what's happening to you, then you're on your way. So the other thing I would say is obviously God's truth according to the word. And that's really, Rhonda, you're also asking a little bit about the OSTAT, because that's where we have to build that team of wise others in our life. And so a part of defining your core and knowing who you are and knowing what you think, that's part of the structure there. And then I'm going to reach out to some wise others, and I'm going to have a little bit of discernment now because I have a stronger sense of my internal core. So as I'm listening to these external people who are wise, who are safe, and who are trustworthy, I'm going to weigh and think through in a critical way what they're saying. How does it apply to my situation? I do think that you develop a degree of discernment from having a stronger internal core, right?
I was just going to say that. Yep.
Would you
Because
like?
that kind of speaks to Rhonda's question around opinion, because we may have trusted people, or maybe not so much to just offer their opinions anyway. And we want to grow that discernment muscle. We want to feel safe, and we want to be able to hear God through all the different opinions we might be getting, so that we can choose not only the one that serves us best, but serves us in the context of what the Lord is calling us to do. So yeah. And then the feelings part that you mentioned, Rhonda, again, back to everything that Coach Diana just said, or even in reference to the thought journal. I know thoughts are thoughts and feelings are maybe a different experience, but we also learn how to respond versus react. Feelings are fleeting. And if to the untrained person, meaning someone that isn't maybe that self-aware or whatever, we've often, myself included, have very much reacted out of emotion. And that doesn't always serve us. So we want to learn how to maybe process through those feelings. So again, we can show up with a capital T truth. And so part of this time together, we weave throughout the entire 3 months, is learning how to notice when something's happening. So a certain feeling, certain thought, whatever may be coming up for you, learning how to pause. Could be 3 seconds, it could be 3 weeks before you take that time to listen to God, open yourself up to wise others, and really discern what your next steps need to be, and then respond versus react. We know how to notice, and we say choose what we want to choose, our act, choose our response, choose our words. That in and of itself is very, very powerful. And it again speaks back to that healthy form of control, self-control that the Bible calls us to have, so that we're no longer reacting quickly out of feelings that we know are fleeting, but rather really learning how to process and slow down.
Well, here's the other thing I like about feelings. All right, I'm going to speak to feelings a little bit too, but feelings are our friend. They're not always our enemy. Sometimes we overreact when we're feeling intense, right? But our feelings can help guide us to that truth. And that's a part of really learning discernment. Like, what am I noticing here? We don't like act out of our feelings, but we use them for information as well. Yeah. And
great messengers. Feelings, thoughts, all of that are huge messengers. We have to learn how to listen.
So, yeah, we were clear. I have an example of this. You want me to give an example?
Yes, please.
So we were clearing out our house, and we got some help because we needed a little bit of external help. But what ends up happening sometimes when you ask for help and you have people with strong opinions, they tell you what you need. And if you don't have a strong core, you don't know what you need. And I had a lot of people tell me, you need to get rid of this. You shouldn't have this here. We're talking about furniture, right? And I know what I like. I know what I need. And I don't care if it fits with my decor. And a part of that, I think, working on my core strength is saying, what matters to me? What do I really like? I'm so different. And I'm different than my spouse. And I'm different than the people that we had helping us, right? And so as a part of that, advocating for yourself in that moment with respect, I just simply spoke up and I said, I know I have a huge pumpkin seat. It's like a love seat, and it's in my house, and it belongs outside on a porch, but I love it. I sit, I cocoon in it, I read, and and for me, I was like, yeah, I know, but I love it, and I'm keeping it. Advocating for yourself. That's what we're learning to develop with our core strength. We might do it in small ways, we might do it in large ways, but we always learn to do it in appropriate ways where I'm not damaging relationship. I'm respecting that person as well, but I'm actually just being me.
And taking responsibility for yourself. That just leads us into the R step. That just perfect segue.
For the longest time, I'm the little sister, and so for the longest time, I'd be like, okay, I guess that's what I need. Like, my friend said to me, she left me, I watched her house, and she said to me, you could do whatever you want. You can go in any room in my house. You could because guess what? You're a grown-up adult. And so I think a part of that is just harnessing our agency and saying, this works for me. This doesn't work for me. You get to choose. But right. a part of that is, not letting others tell you what to do. So how are you showing up for yourself in
Mhm.
core strength. And then sometimes when people maybe want to run you over with the bus, do you allow it? Or do you say, oh no, I'm in the driver's seat and I know the course that I'm going on?
That's right. And this fits or this doesn't, and choose accordingly, right?
Yeah.
What's that saying? I'm probably going to mess it up. What's that saying? If I don't stand for anything, I'll fall for everything, or something like
Something
that.
like that. And I'm glad you mentioned that. If
Which
I
is
said,
that what you just were saying there? That's that someone can quote me in the comments, please straighten me out there. But the
yeah,
idea is, if we don't know who we are, if we're not standing up for ourselves, we're
no.
going to fall for anything. We could be led astray.
Well,
We could just okay, maybe it's not even that devastating, but it'll take us down a path. Like I think of a ship. We've often used this analogy. So here's this ship out in this vast wide ocean that you think, how the course is directed. If that ship even so much goes off course by like 3 degrees, it is the difference of hundreds and thousands of miles by the time you were
no.
to reach your destination. And so being unduly influenced by someone when you don't know what you're standing for, or when you don't have those healthy boundaries or the ability to learn how to speak up for yourself, where you were destined for here could end up taking you way, way over here. It's not impossible, but it means now you got to journey back. So
I like that.
we're
It
trying to
helps,
save you a little bit of time and effort.
yes, it helps us know where we're going and choosing our course. I love that.
Yeah, choosing our course, using his word as the beacon, as that light to get us to where we need to be. And we as coaches love to harness what your strengths are. We believe you are the experts in your own life. That's why we're not here to tell you what you need. We're not here to tell you what to do. We give you tools, but kind of like God, we give you free will to choose how to use them and when. So speaking of tools, someone in the chat just asked where we can find the thought journal template. And I don't know that that's actually on any of Leslie's
It's in
public.
the course. It's something that we teach in our courses, ladies.
It's in the
Um,
course. Leslie may have some YouTube videos on when she talks about it, but other than that, no, it's only available through our programs, through Empowered to Change, and specifically this one right now, Walking in Core Strength. So that's where you'll find that.
So I also want to mention you can put your questions in the chat, and what else do we want to mention, Jen? There was something else I was thinking.
I'm just checking on my just checking on my text because we've got support now in there.
Oh,
Yeah, so that's great. So anyway, so yes, put your questions into the chat, and I see you're all supporting.
Gretchen. Yeah, Gretchen's asking about where we can find the course. I just put the link to sign up for the course in the chat, and it's also running across our page. And those are the two sections that we have open: Thursdays, 7:30 a.m. if you're an early morning,
Yep.
and Fridays also 9:30 a.m.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's Eastern time. If for some reason those time frames don't work for you, just know that we normally have like up to 15 different class times, and you'll be able to have that opportunity again come fall. We open this program twice a year. So you may have missed a lot of your choice of preferred times. These are just because we've been so full this year, this season. We opened up.
It's a good time to do it now.
It is. So we don't normally leave it like this and open up some new classes the very week we're starting, but because we have a few days grace in here, gives you lots of time to sort of look at some of the pre-session materials, because not only does Leslie gift us with amazing curriculum all the way throughout the 3 months, but there's a plethora of what we call bonus materials that you can access just to have before we even start. It's just amazing. It's just amazing the gift that this program brings.
So I'm just going to read over a little bit about what we cover in the class, just to give you some teeth. And then also, I would like to ask you guys, what challenges do you notice in your lives that you have with walking in core strength? If you could put that in the feed. So we're going to do the thought. There are 2 videos on the thought journal. We do defining your core, your which we call your big circle self. We're going to talk about blind spots. Boundaries is a big one because everybody thinks they know what a boundary is and how to apply them, but it's not that easy. And then we talk about having difficult conversations. And that's always a really active session that we have, because that's probably one of the toughest things is, the easy conversations we don't usually bring to the table, but how do I deal with this really rough person? Or how do I show up when I'm really afraid, And so it really is a class. It's a core. One of my friends basically identified it truthfully. It's a core foundational class for growing in your strength, knowing who you are. There are pre-session videos available, but you can they will not hold you back from starting this week. Mm-mm. So you can go back to those throughout the 12 weeks that we'll be doing this.
Yeah. And then just to build on that, there is one form that we as coaches like to have filled out to get to know you a little bit better before your class starts. And I think it's about 4 questions, kind of like, why are you here? Why is this important to you? What would you like to achieve? That kind of thing, just to get to know you a little bit better. And I think there's one handout to prepare for that you would want to review and kind of think through some of the questions to help you get started when your class.
We don't have any homework the first session though. So
I think it's just the pre-session handout. We just want you to have like available and ready just to participate most effectively. That said, I want to be very careful to let you know that it's important to us as coaches and for your spirit that, you show up. Don't let anything get in the way. I will sometimes have women in a variety of my different groups say, oh, I almost didn't come tonight. Or I just, and then that's when I will speak right up and say the very time you need to be here is when you don't think you need to be here. That's exactly when you need to show up. Or something, the enemy might be playing, some of those negative thoughts are coming in like, oh, I don't quite understand this. Maybe I'm going to be embarrassed. I don't want to show up. That's exactly when you need to show up. That's the power of the group. We love on you. We support you through it. We want you to ask those questions because inevitably, if you have a question or a situation, somebody else does too. So we want to encourage you. And all of that came from the idea of any homework to get you started this week. Nothing really, but there is homework and stuff to engage in to keep you primed and keep you growing throughout each, the breaks between each of our live sessions. This is so much more than just the Zoom calls we will have together. And that's why it's just such a powerful program. It's 3 full months. It's beautiful.
It's not a ton of work either. It's a lot of application and
it's powerful. You know what, sorry to interrupt.
No, you did not. You're good.
I was just going to say, what I find is there are sort of 2 different types of energy. There's the type of energy that sucks the life out of us and breaks us down. And there's that type of energy that kind of like maybe after you've exercised, maybe you didn't feel like exercising, but boy, you're on fire after you've done it. Those endorphins are going and it may have cost you physical energy, but you come out of it so much more energized. That's what I see about any of this work that we do in these programs is that what may feel like work, I can almost guarantee, if I can be so bold as to say that it's not going to be as hard. You're going to come away more energized than what you've been trying to do so far in those types of relationships. That typically is who shows up, is someone that's drained, has tried everything. They need something new and fresh to try in their lives to build up that peace and to grow. And this type of work that feeds into that lifting up energy.
I think, since we all talk as coaches after we're done with our classes, and I think we're really energized after, I just love, we really love and enjoy being with you all. And it's as energizing for us as we see what's happening in your lives. So,
because we like you said, Diana, you're growing and learning every time you go through this curriculum. I do too. But as coaches and as a team of professionals, we want to not only learn for ourselves, but learn collectively as a group how to serve you all better. And so every time you participate and every time you have an aha moment, we would like to share in that joy and in that
Right.
celebration. And then we without breaking confidentiality, of course, we might share that amongst our team just to say what we learned and what was really powerful in one group might be effective in another too. So we're all in this together. We really, really are. And so we just encourage you to help feed into that and feed into the kingdom, because we learn from this. And then what we learned from this semester carries forward into all future classes as well.
Absolutely. So what questions do you ladies, we have a small audience out there. What questions do you have for us regarding core strength, regarding your challenges, any of those things that we can answer in the time that we have left with you?
That would be really, really great for us to answer or even just practical questions about what the sessions look like, or
Absolutely.
anything like that we can answer for sure. We would love to be able to help you. But yeah, just in the time that we have left, do you want to touch on a little bit those last two parts, the R and the E, because we've sort of covered off the C and the O.
Sure. So we're talking about committed to truth, being open to receiving input from others, and R is being responsible and respectful. Responsible for myself while being respectful toward others. And I think if we've had a weak core strength, we are weak toward taking responsibility for ourselves, and we maybe advocate that or abdicate that toward others, or we just don't. And so this is where you get to show up and take care of yourself, right? And then all the while there may be some challenges along with that, like how do I take responsibility for myself and yet generate or maybe communicate that with being respectful toward others while I'm doing that. And I gave you the example of just simply stating to my helper, what works for me, and thank you for your help, and I really appreciate you being here, but that's a no for me. We always learn in relationship when we use our no's. We always learn a lot, don't we?
Yeah. We learn a lot about ourselves and about how that person wants to treat us. There's a lot of lessons learned there. Absolutely. And one of the benefits of that too, when we're talking about, what core is and what are the benefits, is I call it the emotional hangover. We don't want one of those. And so when we can show up as our best godly selves, i.e., taking responsibility for ourselves while being respectful to others, to me, it's a win-win. You not only get to advocate for yourself and have healthy boundaries and maybe get your own needs met, but you're doing it in a godly way, in a kind, respectful way. Whereas sometimes if we react maybe hastily out of an emotion, say particularly anger, and it's not something we're particularly proud of, well, then now not only are you dealing with whatever the issue was to begin with, which is already kind of yucky, and now you're dealing with what I call the emotional hangover, the regrets that come with how you behaved, how you reacted, any of that sort of stuff. So when we focus building our core strength, particularly the R step, it really helps avoid some of that. And it's something that we can be God honoring in terms of how we want to show up. So I think that's really important benefit to note.
Nice. We got a couple questions, Jen.
Okay, great.
So Gretchen's wanting us to know, to talk a little bit more about what the sessions look like. The sessions are 90 minutes. They meet every other week, starting this Thursday and Friday, whichever section you would choose. And they go, we meet 6 times, so it's over the course of 12 weeks. And so what that looks like is you will come to the first session having just viewed the pre-session material, and you will have a handout for every session. And we ask you to watch the videos, like before session 2, you'll watch the videos and you'll kind of just preview the handout. And we do most of the work in class. Your processing work, we're going to coach you around that material. You're going to apply it to yourself personally. And then as you move through the week, ask that you commit to spending some time thinking it through. What does it mean for me? How do I apply it? And then also developing any questions or things that you have, areas that you're struggling in, so that you bring that to the next class, so that you can turn around and really see the growth. And and the areas where, what I love to say is, you're no longer struggling in. So I hope that answers the question. You will have, and you have a private Facebook page to interact with the larger group of women. And it is you will get a link to Leslie's site that is for learning, and you will always have access to that material even when you complete the class. So what a lot of my ladies have done, they formed such a nice cohesive group that some of them will plan on their own to organize meetings, and they will meet for further continued accountability, mentorship, follow-up, whatever. And some of them are still meeting several years afterward because we get to know one another in these groups and find the support and strength of a community of women who are on a similar journey with very similar goals, right? We're here to do our work. And so I will say that if you want to join and you're considering it, really just be committed to, I'm going to do this work for me. In fact, I just did that this morning. I was on a call and I said to my friend, what are we doing next? And so she picked a book and I'm like, she goes, you've got so much going on, Diane. I said, I know, but I want to do this because it's growth for me. So, so this is growth for you. All right, we got one more question. I will read it to you.
Sure.
Who I am. I am having difficulty trying to figure out who I am and exact feelings I am having. Is there any curriculum on this, and where could I find it? I think that's what we're talking about, correct?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, you would find it in Walking in Core Strength, because we do not just have videos to watch and like handouts to follow along, but the idea is, as to what Diana was just talking about, is during those 2 weeks where we're not meeting, we're asking you to apply this, practice it. You may not get it perfectly. It's just like building muscle or whatever, but you're in the safety of being able to then come back to the live group and say, this is how I tried to use my thought journal process. And I don't know, can you ladies help me out here? Like, I don't know. It didn't really go the way I thought it would. Or have a celebration of a success story that you have. But that's where the growth happens, is when you apply it and truly put these tools into practice. Because like anything, you could go to the personal trainer at the gym, but if you're not doing the exercises between one meeting with your trainer to the next, you're not going to lose that weight or get stronger or whatever. You're going to know stuff, but you're not actually going to develop and grow. So I think that's where this curriculum would really help answer and develop those muscles that we're talking about here.
Yeah, it does start in small ways, knowing yourself, and like we talked about early on in the call, Jen was talking about awareness. And I think awareness has to be engaged in with intention. And those are just words, but like, what does that mean? Like, I have to journal. What am I noticing when I leave a conversation or when I leave an activity? I'm going to notice how I feel about that. What did it bring to me? Is it in line with my values? How does it strengthen me? How did it not strengthen me? Is it something I don't ever want to do again? And I don't know about you ladies. I think we're all on the same page that we don't want to live a meh life, MEH. We want to live a vibrant life. And I do think that a part of that, as you're asking, is how do I know myself, is really that work, is knowing yourself better, defining yourself. And along with that, understanding who God's called you to be in this context, right? Yeah, so I hope that helps a bit. And if you're not able to join at this time, we will look forward. Yeah, we're hoping that you do. But I think this is where you would want that core essential of, like, how do I start to know myself? And yeah.
This is a way to do a deeper dive in the safety of a lovely, lovely community. It's just amazing. There's another question that might be related, if I can just tag on to that conversation, was Sandy asked, how long does it usually take for you to have a better control of emotional reaction instead of responding as a godly woman?
I missed that. I got to read it again. Is it at the bottom?
Yeah, it's towards the bottom. How long does it usually take for you to have better control of emotional reaction instead of responding as a godly woman? And I think it ties in nicely to what we were just saying there. So it's about your commitment to do the work. It is doing the deeper dive based on the curriculum, the really powerful, thought-provoking questions this isn't always just some of it's reflective. Hey, think of a time where something like this happened, but it's always with a view of, and then what can we learn from it? Where can we grow? So that kind of takes, part of what we were just answering there. But in terms of Sandy's question, how long does it take? I think we're in charge of that as individuals. It's how much you're able to commit, how much you're willing to commit, how open are you to learning and doing the deep dive. I know I work a lot in the addictions world with some of my clientele, and there's that old saying that it took 40 years to get into the forest, in terms of like their alcoholism or their drug use or gambling or something, but it doesn't take that long to heal, to come back and heal from that and grow, because it may have taken you that long to wander deep into that forest, but you can double back with the effort, with the awareness, with the openness, with taking God into all of this. So, I know that's not much of an answer for you, but I think it's up to you.
Well, and I do think it takes practice. As I look at some of the responses and reactions I've had in the last year of my life, I certainly couldn't tell you that I've always been there. And so as we continue to work on ourselves, I would say the first thing is it'll take forever if you don't begin. But if you begin to become aware of these dynamics and these concepts, and you know who you are, and that's really what we're talking about. Building core strength is about building that internal core so that you do have better emotional responses and you have choices. So that's really what we do, and that's what we're talking about in this context. There's one more I wanted. How do you respond or talk? And it's Carrie. Thanks for this question. How to respond or talk assertive communication to someone who will ghost you and then shows up again. And I will say to you before I answer that, we do have a whole class on responding. Because it is difficult. We all have these nuanced situations. And I think what's really helpful is practicing responses. And even to that earlier question about how do I get better at the emotional responses, sometimes it's just a matter of practicing how I respond and what will I say differently. And we do a bit of that, right? And we learn from those scripts that we have, right?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, I'm glad you reminded me of that. We do have an entire lesson, if you will, based on speaking up. The other thing I would add to that is healthy boundaries. What is your boundary about someone that's a part of your life, ghosts you, and then comes back? I mean, I don't know the circumstances or anything like that around why they did that and why they're showing back up again, but is that okay with you or not? How do and that dictates too, is learning how to have healthy boundaries. And that's a whole other conversation that we tend to talk about too, because it's showing up with love. It really is. A lot of people, we have those deeper, heartfelt conversations that some Christian women have been brought up to think that having boundaries is mean, is controlling, isn't proper in a Christian relationship, whereas actually we feel quite the opposite. We think it's very loving. We know Jesus had boundaries, and we think it's something that only helps us grow, but it maybe in turn helps the other person grow as well, which is what we want to do as fellow brothers and sisters in Christ. So anyway, there's lots that we could do just with that one situation alone with the Walking in Core Strength program. So we hope you can join us this coming week. And if not, we're always doing lives like this to help you learn and grow in smaller doses. We're also opening this up again, I think usually come the fall, later in the fall, we do this again. So
right. We only offer this one. This is the only class we offer twice a year.
Yes.
It's the foundational one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we want to thank you for your time and for being with us today. And those of you that will be watching later, we really want to invite you. We probably will be closing the doors pretty soon because we want to give you adequate time to get your materials and all of that. But we do have those slots available on Thursday morning and Friday morning, just a few. We want to invite you to do the work, to the growth work. Yes, it's good to do Conquer at the same time. The material complements it very, very well. And you'll be within a small group context with these ladies. So it's a very different kind of environment than you'll get at Conquer.
Still
Yeah.
all good information that weaves together nicely.
Yeah.
But you're right, Diana. It's a separate kind of feel. It's a different level of support that we offer. So all good stuff. All
And a
good.
deeper dive in a different setting. Yeah. And they're on Zoom. We meet via Zoom. The calls are recorded so that you can go back and watch them. We don't record the breakouts. We don't record the small groups. We just record the main call. And that's so that it's always there for you. And it's just your group that you'll be in, that you'll be able to view. So there's that piece of, safety of I'm just with the women that I've chosen to know. So that's it for today, ladies. Thank you and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you, everyone. Bye now.
Bye-bye.